Vincenzo's Go Crypto Investing this July the 27th, 2025, early morning cryptocurrency, blockchain technology, gold, and silver bullion video as I'm getting this Bitcoin video out to you right now. And then there will be an altcoin video out in the early afternoon. Jabroni Killer members will get it soon, first, by 6 or 7 hours. And we're going to be floating and sitting by a sunny, gorgeous, clearing sky with a high in the upper 80s, just north of downtown Detroit in the great state of Michigan. And we're going to enjoy that late July, midsummer pool day, right? But if we take a look in this video, we're going to look at the Bitcoin price real quick. We're going to get into the Bitcoin price. You'll see the Cadillac of advertising that we don't want. And you can see what we've been talking about. The Bitcoin price is very similar to our track right here. We had an 18-day consolidation, and we're going to break this down super simple and right into the point. We're not going to waste any time today. You can see in blue right there, it's been following it beautifully ever since November peak. When this thing trended down, the price trended down. Not always at the exact same time, but the rhythm is the same. And you can see now we had the big pump up just like we had recently. Now this thing was on an 18-day consolidation. Let's pull our industry exclusive perching tool. This was on an 18-day consolidation where our track is showing. See that? The 29th through about the 14th. And look where we've been now, the 11th through the 27th. So, and we even had just now, look at what we had here. See that? I believe this right here was this right here, right? And now what we should have is we had to return rally. Now we should come down for a correction, and we'll see if this plays out this week. Come just north of this regional bottom, right? To just above it and form a local double bottom, and then you shoot off at the end of next week. Right, so this is what I'm watching closely to see if this is what we're in. Just a mid-ground consolidation before we do our final blow-off top in this bull market cycle, right? And this might be the end of this bull market cycle where then even this track shows it consolidates sideways, and then if you peel out, it actually does come down to about $90,000 in a correction. So that's what we're watching out for in the Bitcoin price. Now, the flip side of this is if we're contrarians and this track is going to bust finally, and some market sanity comes back in, we're going to come down to the 50-day moving average, and then eventually this uptrending support. And that's your major support level, is the 100-day moving average in the daily, which is just above that uptrending rising channel. You can see where the 100-day moving average is. They're running parallel together. That is your signal right there, and then the 200 is just below that and just above the 97,000. This rising channel is your short-term and medium-term and long-term bullish pattern. If you broke this pattern, you would have a big bear market, right? But as long as you're eking your way up with the institutional buys, the ETF money is flowing, retail is buying corporate ETFs instead of just buying the Bitcoin themselves, and they're taking a third-party risk of having an ETF firm manage the Bitcoin. And like Robert Kiyosaki says, and I warn you guys, and this is something that you have to understand when you buy ETFs, if you don't buy the right ETF, the underlying asset itself could go up 10x, right? But the ETF that you're in that's supposed to be tracking the spot price of said asset, that ETF could go belly up because of mismanagement. And you lose all your money, even though the underlying asset, if you would have just bought, in this case, Bitcoin, or say gold, if you would have just bought the physical gold instead of an ETF, you'd be up 10x. Instead, your ETF went belly up because of bad management, right? So there's an additional risk when you buy ETFs versus the underlying asset itself. So you can see if this breaks bullish and follows the track, you're going to 155,000. If this breaks south and finally starts a more meaningful correction, you'd be looking at the 111,000, followed by about the 105, 106,000, the uptrending of the rising channel and the 100-day moving average. If you got below 97,264, you'd become short-term bearish, right? But that's way down below from where you're at now. Bitcoin dominance, you can see, had a brief rally here from about 60.45% dominance to 62.52, and that did have an altcoin sell-off. Right now, the dominance support line is 58.53. The swing high is 66.12, which was a multi-year high, and seeing altcoins dramatically fall. The Ethereum price, you can see right now, we're coming up to this Megaphone pattern that we showed you, but we're in this rising channel and we're coming up against upper resistance. And this Megaphone pattern is this, where you have a descending, look at this, here's your Megaphone pattern. You have a widening wedge of lower support, right? See that? A widening wedge of lower support. And then you have a horizontal neckline at the top. You see that? And it's very easy to see the horizontal neckline at the top. You got a top 1, resistance 2, resistance 3, and now you're coming up into the 4th. That's a megaphone pattern, and technically those are bullish. And then you can see where you would have on the megaphone, oops, that's the wrong one. You would even have some sort of a flagpole even on the megaphone pattern. You see that? And then there's your megaphone. And when these break out to the upside, your technical target would actually fit. See how this rising wedge is in there? Get out of there. God. See how that brings my show to a halt? You would go from the widest part to the overhead resistance and bring it to the point of a breakout. And that gets you all the way up here near $10,000 and takes out the old high of $4,000, right? Or 4,500. And that's a megaphone pattern. So that's what we're in right now, along with this rising channel within the megaphone pattern in the shorter time frame. And with that, your upper resistance now is becoming the megaphone, what we would call the neckline. Come on. Hate when it does this. Which would be up here now at the, get that in red, $4,053, which is near the all-time high. That was set several times, and you can see the actual all-time high is up here at 48.36. So there's your upper resistance is $4,053. Then if we look at your underneath support, obviously 34.72 is your major bullish or bearish short-term support level. As long as you're above that, you're staying bullish. If you broke below that, you're likely to come to the 3,059 or the bottom part of that support and resistance box, right? And that's what we're looking at over the next week, the 4,053 upper resistance to 34.72 underneath support. If we look at the XLM, the same thing. You're dancing on your major support line right now. You can see where the moving averages are. You got the 50-day moving average. We're going to have to zoom in because this is going to be problematic. You got the 50-day moving average getting ever so close to the 36 cents or the top part of this green support and resistance box. You got the 100-day moving average just above the bottom part of that resistance box. And then you have the 200-day moving average sitting just below that. And right now, what you're looking at in the XLM in the short term is it's very simple what you have going on here. To stay bullish in the short term, you want to stay above this 43 horizontal left or right, something that you broke and are trying to hold it as support now. Then you can make a run up here to the 55 cents if you hold this 43 cents. And then maybe potentially in the long range, make a run at the all-time high. On the flip side, if you breach this 43 cents for any reason and you can't hold it, you would quickly come down to the 50-day moving average and or, which is right next to it, to 36 cents or the top part of this green support and resistance box. And as long as you're above that, you stay medium-term bullish. But if you broke below that and breached it, you instantly become medium-term bearish. And then you would look to hold the 50-day moving average. And if you couldn't, you would drop all the way back down to the bottom part of this green support and resistance box at 31 cents. Right? So in the short term, 43 cents is your short-term bullishness to try to shoot you to 55. If you breach the 43 cents, it's bearishness, and it would likely in the short term drive you to the 36 cents. And this is what we're looking at in this video is the short term. The same thing with the XRP. They're just at different levels, but the same formation. Come on. You can see the 50-day moving average is at 270. The 100-day moving average is just below a major short-term support level at 255. And then the 200-day moving average. God, I don't understand why it does this. Is sitting down there at 228, right? So what you want to see here in the XRP, it's very simple. You got rejected by the 376, just below the 385 all-time high. You rejected down to 304 major support level, which is what we talked about up here and which is textbook. Now in the short-term bullishness, you want to stay above the 304 and make a run at 376, right? And you're short-term bullish as long as you're above this 376. If you break this 304, you're likely to come down to the 100-day moving average with a mid-ground brief support at the 50 at 270, but you're likely to come down to the 100-day moving average and this major medium-term bearish support or bullish support level, the 255, where if you stay above that, right? You're medium-term bullish, but if you broke that, you instantly become medium-term bearish, and you would likely come back down to the neckline support at $2.09. So in the short term with XRP, to stay bullish and to continue this train, you stay above the 304. If you slip the 304, you come back to retest the 255 major support level where there would likely be a bounce. If you can hold the 304, you can try to breach the 376. Like the channel, subscribe. Peace and love. Direct Eyebrow. Jabroni Killer J.